Hey folks, it is Office Hours. If you are new here, Office Hours is your chance to ask me questions once a week. And you can join the Zoom call and ask me there, or you can join the Discord and ask in the Discord. Let me share my screen so that you get an idea of how to do that. So if you go to my website, kcdots.com/office hours, then you'll find all of the links that you need here so that you can participate. And this is the channel that we hang out in. It's under the meetups category in KCD Office Hours. And this YouTube, or this is being live streamed to YouTube, and that recording will be available forever. And yeah, I'm just here to answer questions. I have a hard stop at 10:30 today. I've got a meeting with somebody, so we'll go until 10:30. Or if we run out of questions, then we'll stop early. That's happened before too, I think. Maybe not. I tend to be long-winded. So yeah, anybody so far with questions here in the Zoom? I don't think that we have anything that wasn't taken care of in Discord yet. So maybe this one, actually. I have some thoughts on that, but yeah. Okay, if there's nothing in here, it looks like we've got somebody typing, but I'll go ahead and answer. Actually, let me just double check. Oh yeah, we do have, there was a question there. Yeah, okay, cool. So Brody is asking, recently read your blog post on write test, not too many, mostly integration, and follow-up question. So context, I've got a large React project, 1,000+ files that has 100% code coverage via unit test. Whoa. Yeah, zero integration. So it's all unit or end-to-end. There's nothing in the integration spectrum. And I'm guessing that Brody is defining integration the same way that I do, having read these articles. Like to move toward the testing pyramid setup and get some integration testing started. I'm guessing this is a typo, probably meant testing pure or testing trophy, because I don't recommend the pyramid. But yeah, with that, how would you recommend getting started with integration tests in this situation? Not looking to ditch. Yeah, okay. More like your pyramid, my trophy. It's a trophy, not a pyramid. That's okay. Okay, yeah. So so given that you're in that current situation, I wouldn't worry a ton about it, but you're probably babysitting unit tests quite a bit. That's one of the problems with unit tests is anytime, or with heavy unit tests is, and those that like do a lot of mocking and stuff. Anytime you make a change to the way that things integrate together, you often have to change the unit test. By that I mean, like, let's say you have this this component and you change its props. And now, and there's only like one component that uses it. So you have to change that component, but then this has tests around it by itself. And so now you have to go update the test as well. And that doesn't mean that like there's anything problem in that per se necessarily. Like that makes sense. You'd need to update the test. But if you find yourself doing this a lot with certain components, it can be really annoying. And especially if they're only used by one other component, that I wouldn't unit test those. If it's used literally by one thing, unless it's like a really complex thing, then that's different. But if it's just like a pretty simple thing, maybe you have two tests on it or something, I probably wouldn't bother unit testing that itself. And so when you go and babysit it by updating it because the API changed or something, that's a great time to just delete it. And then whatever parent component that's using it, you probably have tests for that, I'm guessing. But if you don't, then you can write tests. But yeah, so you would test the parent without mocking the child, and then you'd get the coverage that you need. So I mean, you can keep the unit test around if you want, but once you have that integration test, there's not a whole lot of reason to keep that unit test around and keep babysitting it all the time. So that's probably what I would recommend doing. Yeah, you could just arbitrarily start adding some integration tests if that's what you want to do as well. So just like say, hey, this page is really important, or like there's a clear way to integrate, do an integration test for this page or this section of a page. that might be useful or worthwhile. As you're getting started, since you have no integration tests, you're going to find that you need to do a fair amount of setup ahead of time for like setting up the providers with your custom render function. You can learn more about that in both Epic React and testing JavaScript, and it's in the testing library docs about making a custom render method. Yeah, that I think that probably should be enough on that question. So yeah, good luck, Brody. You're great. And RJ would like to add to this. Oh, RJ was typing earlier. Maybe they followed up. How would you handle a test case? Like I want to write an integration test for the page interactions with different use cases and form validations, for example, a user page that has a list of users and different modals for add, edit. This is pretty specific to a use case that I'm sure you have in mind. Yeah, so it sounds like you're saying I've got this integration test, but there are a lot of edge cases that I want to test all of those edge cases. Now, normally I try to do edge case testing with lower level tests because for a couple of reasons. Like let's say that we just did all 100% end-to-end tests for like from login all the way to checkout or whatever your app is doing. So if we did that and covered all the edge cases, you would wind up testing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And so you're not getting any additional confidence with those things that you're testing again. But you're paying additional cost because anytime any one of those things changes, you have to update every one of the tests. They take longer to run and all of that. And so you're going to go for a lower level type of test to cover some of those edge cases. Well, we can run into the same thing with integration tests where you end up retesting the same thing over and over again, which by itself is not necessarily a bad thing to do that a little bit. But when you do it a lot, again, if any bit of that changes, you have to update all of the tests to compensate for that change. Maybe you've got a utility that handles that, so that's not a huge deal. But like the fact is that you have to have that utility in the first place, and that needs to be maintained. And then also it just makes all the tests take longer. And so when you're not getting any additional confidence by testing the same thing over and over again, you've got to ask yourself, okay, so what am I getting out of this? And it is, oh, I'm getting coverage on the edge cases. Well, what if I could get coverage on the edge cases by doing even a lower level tests? And that's where unit tests really come in handy. So typically I'll do really long user flows with end-to-end tests. And then shorter, more specific types of user flows with integration tests. And sometimes if your end-to-end test suite is really great, and you don't have a problem with flake or anything like that, then you actually may end up being pretty top heavy with a lot of end-to-end tests. It just kind of depends on where your organization is at. But I find that most organizations are not at a place where they can be top heavy. So yeah, if you can have a top heavy trophy, then that's awesome. But yeah, most of the time integration test is where it's going to be at. And that's why the trophy has the shape it does. Anyway, yeah, where was I going with this? So you've got your integration tests that are covering like primarily the regular cases, maybe some edge cases in there. And then for any like major edge cases, you got unit tests that'll cover all of the different edge cases of the different units that you're integrating together. Because once you have found that these things integrate together, then there's not a whole lot of that's the major confidence you get with integration tests. And once you get that confidence, there's not a ton of reason to keep going and cover all the edge cases. You can do all of that in unit tests. And they run faster. It's more obvious what is broken when they do break, and that sort of thing. Now, sometimes the edge case is in the integration. So if I have this thing set up and I do this over here, and then this other thing, I do this over here, then this third thing breaks, and that's the edge case that I'm testing. In that situation, then you don't really have too much of an option. I mean, you could mock out some of those things, But I probably would, if the bug is the integration, then that's what I would be testing, is that integration. So there's some nuance there, but typically edge cases, lower level tests. Good luck. Hopefully that is helpful. Yeah, okay, let's talk about the multiple before and after each. So yeah, and actually, oh shoot, let me see if I can shoot. I don't think I remember how to say this person's name. I think I YouTubed it last time and I pasted a link. Here it is. Let me remind myself. The following pronunciation is brought to you by Oh my goodness, the following pronunciation. Here we go. Come on. Sud. All right, Sud. I think that's how you say it. So Sud answered with a separation of concerns. Yeah, okay, and there's also that sort of, but yeah, it's mostly separation concerns. I like to say, okay, here's my general cleanup of things generally, and then this is my cleanup for mocks. If I could combine these without any trouble, and I could just stick this in front of all of this stuff. Yeah, so it's important that these are last, because Jess runs after each in reverse order. We want this to run first. So yeah, we definitely could combine these, but I sometimes, you'll notice I actually have a couple, yeah, another one right here. So I like to just say, here's all of my stuff for the MSW server. Here's just general cleanup for pretty much everything. And then here's my timer stuff. That's the whole reason. Yeah, there's no reason other than that. And so I'll stop talking. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, cool. So, and Rupert gave a good answer to this question, but I have some more thoughts. So we've got a component A that has a couple things in it and a component B. And yeah, how would we write tests for component A? So component B is already well tested. It's external, and it uses values provided by the provider that live in component A. So we'd like to test component A, but don't, yeah, to do that, I need to set up all the providers. So component B can use those values. Yeah, okay, so I'm actually not sure how you would test component A without doing the setup for the providers that component B needs. But keep in mind that the more your tests resemble the way your software is used, the more confidence they can give you. So if you're saying, oh, well, if I don't if I mock out component B, then I don't have to set up all the stuff for the providers for component A. But in your actual application, those providers are going to get set up. And so if you don't set those things up in your test, then you're not getting confidence that those things will work when you ship it to production. And so even if you decide to mock out component B, you probably still should be doing whatever setup is necessary for component A to operate in as realistic an environment as possible. And so with that in mind, the only time I really bother mocking out children components, even if they're well tested, is if they're doing something that makes it hard to set up. So like, for example, a like animation library where I don't want to wait for the animation to end, or maybe it's a giant data table that takes all of my data and it's and I've got a lot of it for my tests or something like that. And so it's making my test take forever. Then maybe in that case, I would mock it out. Or probably mock out the data so that it doesn't have quite as much or something. But considering the fact that component B is super well tested, that's great. But if component B is using some context values that component A is providing, then that's what we call an integration. They're integrating with each other. And if you don't test those things in integration, then you don't get confidence that the integration works in test. And so you can't be sure that it'll work in production. So I typically avoid mocking things out for this reason. But yeah, all that really matters at the end of the day is that you feel confident that things are going to work in production. And you do that by having your test do the same thing that production is doing, or at least one of the tests should do that integration stuff. But yeah, if you do want to mock it out, this is a fine way to mock it. I actually normally return null, but fragment works fine. Or you can do, in the past, I've done a div with an ID that has the name of the component so that I can like see where that was supposed to be rendered. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, cool. And yeah, sweet. Another question here. Sorry, Oyenkan. Hopefully I said that right. You can correct me. I like to say names right. I've been learning React for a while and building some applications, but I've not really seen resources where I can practice proper UI architecture if I don't want to use a component library. I see more tutorials around engineering improvements and not UI or styling architecture improvements. How do you suggest? Yeah, okay. So here's the problem with architecture related stuff. There are countless opinions on it, and the right opinion depends largely on context. So this is actually one of the reasons why you see so much beginner material and not as much advanced material, because, well, in part because there are a lot of instructors who are only able to teach the beginner stuff because, like, as we're getting started, right, in the instructing world, we only know so much. So there are fewer people who know the advanced stuff who can teach the advanced stuff. That's all I'm saying there. But also because it's really difficult to generalize it enough to reach a wide enough market of people. So the motivation to create that type of material is also lower because the market is so much smaller. Because what works for me may not work for you very well. Like, it's just really hard to generalize those types of things, that like the architectural style things. So yeah, like, and I certainly don't have the time within this office hours to give you a lot of like in-depth advice on what you should do for your particular situation, because again, a lot of it just depends on context, and I don't know what would be most useful to you. So yeah, I'm afraid I don't have any material for yeah, for architecture. I'm not entirely certain what type of UI architecture you're looking for. Like, are you talking about the structure of React components or the file system, or like I'm so there's that too. But yeah, in any case, I don't think that there's anything I can point you to. Sorry. Okay. Any other questions? I'll wait here for a little bit to just see. We'll wait for this individual to finish typing their message. I've been working on my new website, which has been consuming my life for the last like 4 months or maybe longer. Yeah, it's been fun. What is the front-end stack you would recommend for setting up a medium to large scale application that is being rewritten in React.js so that it's easy, maintainable, scalable in the future? It's hard for me to recommend anything but Remix, but it's also hard for me to recommend Remix because it's still pre-release right now. But I'm telling you, folks, Remix is the future. It is so great, and I am so glad that I chose Remix for my website. And I feel like you could build anything that you want to with Remix. It's well suited for so many situations. Like, seriously, even if you were building a game, I think Remix would be a fantastic option for that sort of thing. Now, like, it's not going to do lots of the things that you might need for a game, but like all the other tools you'd use to build a game, you could use them with Remix to great effectiveness. So yeah, Remix, it works for your little static site if you want to do that. It doesn't have a way to generate static pages built in, but it's really easy to make that work. And it can also work really well for your highly interactive dashboard or whatever. Yeah, like, so take it with a grain of salt because Remix isn't actually released officially yet, but my goodness, I have never been more productive building React applications than I have been with Remix. I love it. It's fantastic. So I can't tell you to go use Gatsby, certainly. I can't tell you to go use Next. Even though I know it's great, it's, you know, lots of people love it. There's a big community around it. I can't tell you that because I know Remix is just so much better. And that is the way I feel about that. So give Remix a look. And just in case people don't know, remix.run is the place you want to go. So good luck. Yago, what's up? I see you're typing. You can, yeah, React 3 Fiber for games. Yeah, that would be sweet. You could totally do that. And the cool thing too is with Remix, very early on, oh shoot, what's his name? He's just an awesome person in the Vue community. I've totally spaced his name. But he is, got Remix working with Vue. So like Remix is not married to React is all I'm saying, because they invert control enough for you to be able to do a lot of really cool stuff. Now it is like technically built for React, but they have mentioned that it is the plan is to be able to use more than just React. Ghosty just said Remix is license-based. I'm pretty sure that Ryan has said this in public enough, but it will not always, they are changing their license structure right now. They're working on it. And so, yeah, honestly, so I'll just go on a little rant on the license thing. And yeah, you can see that very clearly right here. It says buy a license. The license is $250 a year for individuals. But like I said, the licensing structure is going to change very favorably. I'm not going to say any more about that. I can only feel comfortable telling you that much because I know that I'm pretty sure Ryan has said it in public a couple of times. But anyway, let me talk about the license. I have a machine down here that is a tool for building websites that cost me thousands of dollars. And I'm going to replace it before too long. So in the lifetime of my machine, I am spending way more than I will spend on my yearly subscription to Remix. And you're right. I'm not piling on you, Ghosty. It's fine. It is a factor, and I'm glad you mentioned it. So I'm just addressing it to it's kind of the elephant in the room. I probably should have mentioned it anyway. But yeah. So I see Remix as a tool for a productivity tool. It would take me a lot longer to hand code the zeros and ones. And so I buy this machine so I don't have to do that and I can be more productive. Remix is exactly the same thing for me. Just because it's hardware it's software instead of hardware, it doesn't make a difference. It's a productivity tool. And yes, there are alternatives that are free. So you could go use Next. But I see them as I see Remix as that much better that I am happy to pay for it. So yeah, don't let the whole license thing throw you off. Just because it's not technically open source doesn't mean that it isn't a fantastic option. And I strongly advise giving a serious look at Remix. So, and like I said, yeah, things are scheduled to change eventually. So, okay, cool. Any other things before we wrap up? Oh, and Yago, yeah, because you have control over the entries. Yeah, so in Remix, did I close VS Code? No, where is it? It's on the wrong screen. Here it is. Whoop. So, so I have this entry server file where I get to handle any request that's made. And then I have this entry client where I get to control what happens when my code runs in the client. And in these cases, I am in total control of calling React DOM .hydrate and React DOM server render to string. And so I can do whatever I want. And in fact, I do. I say, if we're going for the RSS XML, then I generate that and I send that as XML. Yeah. And of course, like I also have an Express server where I can do some of this stuff too. But yeah, so you could serve up your doc type HTML, and the markup could just happen to be Vue that you rendered. And then you come over here and you hydrate it with Vue, or however Vue does that. So anyway, it's kind of cool. There are a couple things that you would kind of have to build for yourself if you went that route. And I'm not sure what is his name. He's an awesome person. I feel bad I've forgotten his name. He's Jake. I think it's Jake. I think he had to reach into Remix's internals a little bit. I think they give you a global variable or something to get access to stuff. But the thing is that Remix is still under development, but the way that it has been built lends itself really well to me seeing that, like it may not support this now, but it would be really possible to support this in the future. And so, yeah, I like that it doesn't paint me into a corner at all. So. Okay. Horacio, what is up? You can feel free to unmute yourself too if you'd rather just talk. Okay, no worries. All right, sweet. Well, I think we're about done. That actually works out for me since I do have a meeting. But if you have a question, I'll wait for just a little bit before moving on with life. Okay. All right, sweet. Let's wrap this up then. So again, this has been office hours. And I did end up canceling last week, but my next cancellation isn't until August 6th. So I will be here next week. So should be fun. Should be real fun. Okay.